So that I think like really motivates me to want to just improve the conditions for everybody else and just improve like the system overall.
That's good, Brandon. For me personally, my mom went into cardiac arrest pretty recently. She's doing great right now, but that's also another why. Like, I've always wanted to be a doctor, but that also did push me a lot more to be a doctor, even more, to help, just like how he said, like underserved communities, talk, like save lives. Like, that's all our reason. I'm pretty sure we're not doing this for the money. So does anyone else want to share their story?
I thought I wanted to go into medicine originally just because like it would be great to help people. And that was a field that I felt like I could be the most impactful in. I thought I wanted to go into law, but I wasn't quite sure if I would be able to actually accomplish anything with it. But since coming to OSU and meeting all the great doctors involved with MAPS and SNMA, it really solidified that this is what I want to do. But yeah, seeing all of their stories, seeing how they're able to be able to help in the hospital, but also help people from their own communities was really inspiring to me. So that's why I decided to stick with it.
That's awesome, Aaron. Thank you. Anybody else before we move on? If not, it's okay. All right, so I do have a motivational video from Dr. Gray. For those who may not know, Dr. Gray is pretty huge on Instagram, and in general, he does have he does have a really good website and podcast, and he did write a lot of great books about the whole medical school process application. And his podcasters are really amazing because he does interview sessions with like a lot of pre-meds, from non-traditional to traditional to like literally you name it, anything on there. It's pretty good and pretty inspirational. But this video I'm going to play.
At Bluehost, you're not just making a website.
Can you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're making an impact. With your blog,
becoming a physician is something that you can accomplish. Have you ever felt like giving up? Like this path is too hard? That's what we're going to talk about today. How to overcome those feelings. How to overcome wanting to quit. Becoming a physician is something that you can accomplish. I hear too often from students that this process is too hard, that they doubt their abilities to do this. They're in the middle of studying for the MCAT and they don't know why they're putting themselves through this every single day. And trust me, I've been there. I've done that. I've been rejected from medical school. I thought that I wasn't good enough to be a doctor. And yet, here I am, a physician, having gone through medical school, having gone through my internship year, having taken care of patients for many years. I got through that process because I knew why I wanted to do it. And you have to know your why. Why do you want this? As you're sitting there studying for your 4th, your 5th, your 6th MCAT full-length exam, sitting there for 7.5 hours, you have to remember the patients that you will be taking care of when you're a physician. You have to make sure that as you're going through this process, you're studying for organic chemistry, biochemistry, the MCAT, that you are not 100% focused on that all the time, because you'll burn out. You'll forget why you're doing this. You have to put yourself around patients. You have to constantly remind yourself why you are doing this. If you do not do that, if you do not keep your why at the top of your mind, your MCAT score will suffer. Your GPA will suffer. Your relationships will suffer. By taking breaks, by getting yourself back into a hospital, by getting yourself back around physicians while shadowing, volunteering at hospice, and talking to patients who are at the last days of their life, you will remember why you are doing this. And that will motivate you to continue to sit there for 7.5 hours on your MCAT full-length days. It will continue to motivate you to study that extra hour for your organic chemistry, your biochemistry exam. It will motivate you to write those secondary essays, to write your personal statement, and to know that this is what you want to do. So, as you are sitting there right now, doubting if you can do it, stop. You can. You are smart enough, but are you willing to put in the work? And I know you are if you remember why you want to do it.
All right. So what did you guys think about that video? Let me go back. Any thoughts? Was it motivational? I mean, I like listen to it when I like feel down and like feel unmotivated. So it really helps me out a lot. All right. So when we look at the AAMC website, there are 15 core competencies medical school admissions look into before they consider you. So the first thing I want to talk about was service orientation. So service orientation demonstrates a desire to help others and sensitivity to others' needs and feelings. Also talks about demonstrates a desire to, other distress, recognizes responsibility socially, locally, nationally, globally. Social skills are very important, demonstrates an awareness of others' needs, goals, feelings, and the way that, you communicate. Also, social and behavioral cues affect people's interactions and behavior. It also adjusts behavior appropriately in response to these cues and also treats others with respect. Culture competence demonstrates knowledge of socio-cultural factors that affects interactions and behaviors, shows appreciation and respect to not only to their community, to themselves, to their peers, to their co-workers, to their other appliant. Just really shows that you are using your resources for learning and citizenship and work, and recognizes and appropriately addresses bias in themselves and others. It also interacts effectively with people from diverse backgrounds. Also teamwork. Teamwork is very important. I know in like the medical field, it is a huge aspect that if you cannot work in teams, then that's something that you really need to work on. And like we always think like, oh, a physician is like, oh, leader, but a leader also does need to know how to work within a team, because a leader can't work by himself, always has a team. And you do need to know the knowledge with others and provide feedback. Put team goals ahead of individual goals. And then there's also oral communication. So they effectively convey information to others using spoken words and sentences, listens effectively, recognizes potential communication barriers, and adjusts approach and clarifies information as needed. These, now I'll go into depth with other ones, but these are straight from the AAMC website. And I did provide a link down here, and I'll share this with you guys too, so you guys can take a look at it, because this is what they look at in order to see if you are going to get accepted. So then let's talk about ethical responsibility to self and others. So this means like behaves in an honest and ethical manner. Remember, honesty is a huge thing everywhere you go, no matter what. Even if you're in the right or the wrong, always be honest. Personal and academic integrity, adheres to ethical principles, follows rules and procedures, restricts peer pressure, and engage in unethical behavior, and encourages others to behave in honest and ethical ways, develops and demonstrates ethical and moral reasoning. So that's also very important for yourself and others, being ethically responsible. So now, then the next one is reliability and dependability, constantly fulfills obligations in timely and satisfactory manner, takes responsibility for personal actions and performance. Even if you did do something wrong and you do regret it and you're scared to speak out about it, please seek help and talk about it. Now, like going into the medical field, you must have accountability, and this is your responsibility. So you really need to go out of your way, no matter what. If you don't feel comfortable, if you feel peer pressured, whatever it is, to talk to someone about it. Next one is resilience and adaptability, and also demonstrates tolerance of stressful or changing environments or situations and adapts effectively to them. Someone that's easily can adapt to literally anything. If we switch up situations, even if it's easy or difficult, you learn the knowledge and you seek the help that you need in order, to get back from your setbacks. Capacity for improvement sets goals for continuous improvement, and for learning new concepts, skills, engages in reflective practice for improvement, and also responds appropriately to feedback. It's not like, oh, if you receive feedback, you take it the wrong way and you get upset about it. You kind of are like, okay, maybe I'll reconsider it. Maybe I'll change my ways. Maybe I'll see something new. Those are also very important. And feel free to ask questions on the way, or we can talk later on. So thinking and reasoning competencies, critical thinking. So they look at, these are the first 4 terms that they look at: critical thinking, quantitative reasoning, scientific inquiry, and written communication. So the, critical thinking is logic and reasoning to identify your strengths and weaknesses of alternative situations and conclusions or approaches to problems. Quantitative reasoning applies quantitative reasoning and appropriate mathematics to describe or explain, in the natural world. Scientific inquiry applies knowledge for scientific process to integrate and synthesize information, solve problems, research questions, hypothesis. Scientific knowledge is discovered and validated. And then writing communications effectively conveys information to others using written words and sentences. And lastly, science competencies. So living systems also applies knowledge and skills in the natural science to solve problems related to molecular macro systems, including bio. We don't have to go in depth for that, but that was just on the AAMC, and I just thought that was also important. And then there's also human behavior, applies knowledge of self, others, social system to solve problems related to psychological, social, cultural, biological factors that influence health and well-being. So I know that was a lot of information. That was just the 15 core competencies. Now you don't have to have all 15 in order to, obviously you do have to have majority of it, but I'm not saying, it's like a checklist. You kind of have to check everything off in order to be successful in applying for medical school and being reconsidered. This is the breakdown. So let's talk academics. So right here I have the GPA and the MCAT. So for a Black applicant, the science average GPA is 3.15. Non-science GPA is 3.56. GPA total average is 3.33. And the MCAT score usually is 497.6 for a Black applicant. Now I put all this over here so we can go back and compare the scores. So Hispanic is science GPA is 3.30, and then non-science 3.64, GPA average is 3.44, MCAT is around 500. Multi-racer, a different background, is science GPA is 3.41, non-science 3.69, GPA average is 3.53, MCAT score is 504.7, and then the Asian 3.52 is a science GPA, non-science 3.74, average 3.62, and MCAT score 508.4. And white applicants, their science GPA is normally 3.56, non-science is 3.76, GPA average is 3.64, and the MCAT score for them is 507.6. So now when we look at all of, like, if we compare GPA requirements, who tends to have the lowest average? If someone can answer that question for me. Anyone?
The Black applicant.
Yeah. And so that is true. And then who has the highest? Obviously, it's obvious. Anyone?
White applicant.
Yeah, thank you. So basically, this is really important because this is why for like medical school applications and stuff like that, when people do apply, now a lot of the people that do apply and get into medical school are often white or Asian descent, and basically not so minority or minority descent, but it's probably because we really do need to pay attention to these numbers. And I think it's really important because, like, for example, if I'm applying for medical school pretty close and I'm comparing myself to numbers with a white applicant, well, obviously I'd be very discouraged if my GPA or my MCAT isn't around the area of theirs is. So it's kind of, this is really great because it's something that you can bounce off of. Now, I'm not saying like you should go for, okay, well, I'm Black, so I'm going to go for that science GPAs, which is a 3.15. Like, I have to have a 3.15. Obviously, try hard as much as you can. Try to get a great, GPA as much as you can. But I'm just saying this is just, it's just the facts that have been out. Let's talk about the MCAT. So the MCAT is a 7.5-hour exam with 2 10-minute breaks and 1 30-minute break. So the topics, there's 4 topics. So there's the biological and biochemistry foundations of living system. That section includes 59 multiple choice questions and 95-minute section. This section test is based off of biology, organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, and biochemistry. Then we get to the second section, which is the chemical and physical foundation of biological system. So this section is 59 multiple choice questions. There's 95-minute section. So this section test is based off of biochemistry, biology, general chemistry, organic chemistry, and physics. Then we also get to the psychology, sociology, and biological foundation of behavior section. This section is 59 multiple choice questions and 95-minute section. It's all about psychology, sociology, biology, basically anything that's foundation of behavior. Then we get to the CARS. The CARS basically is like reading comprehension section for standardized testing. It can go from humanities to social science disciplines. And then it's also 53 multiple choice questions. You have 90 minutes in that section to complete it. And so these are the sections. I know this can seem very overwhelming, but a lot of people do study within the 6-month period. I've also seen people study within the 3-month period, but if you're studying with a 3-month period, you really have to be doing full-time studying because this test is no joke. So let's talk non-academic. So consistency is key in everything that you do. It is your responsibility to make sure everything is enough in your process. So let's talk volunteering. So volunteering is more quality over quantity. Make sure you're staying at one place for a while and you're observing that place and you're seeking all the clinical hours that you can get at one place instead of just hopping around volunteering areas. It just shows that you're not very consistent. And then also 10 to 15 months, this is just a recommendation that I saw. So 10 to 15 hours per month is recommended for volunteering. Now, if you can't do 10 to 15 hours per month, that's okay. Just as long as you're getting within that semester some kind of volunteering, I feel like you are on a good track. So the clinical volunteering, they say it's around 150 to 200 hours that are recommended for clinical volunteering. Non-clinical could be around from 150 to 200 hours. Now, I'm not saying this is throughout a year. This is throughout your whole undergrad. That's what I heard. So it's not something that you all want to rush and do in 1 year. Consistency is key. Shadowing. So typically people that get into medical school and, you know, are successful with it typically do like 50 hours of shadowing. Now you do have to have shadowing hours for your medical school application process, but 50 and more is a safe number. Make sure you're consistent. Make sure you're also like, you know, viewing different specialties. You're not just sticking with one. And also like the whole MD and DO perspective, I think is very important. If you are applying for an MD school, then obviously MD or DO doesn't matter, but it's good to see different perspectives. So clinic, I mean, a doctor is a doctor, but still it's best for whatever, you know, medical school you will be applying to. Clinical experience, so direct physical patient exposure such as medical scribing, nursing aid, PCA, EMT, caretaker, etc. So they typically say 200 hours or more, or basically the more the better. Overtime is key. So for me personally, I've been a PCA for a year and months, but I continue being a PCA. I think clinical experience is one of those things where it's very important that you do get that direct patient care exposure. And it really does honestly let you know that is the pathway for you to determine if this path really is for you or not. But it also is really important in your medical school application. Extracurricular, student orgs, which you guys are already all in one right now. Clubs, and then any hobbies. You like to read, you like to play soccer, you like to play basketball, do you like to tutor, do you like to mentor? Whatever. I think that's very important in that section that you can, that's like your time for you to brag about. Like, hey, outside of school and outside of student involvement, this is what I do for fun. And it's like your part for you to talk it up a little more. And also to do something fun. And it just shows that you have a life outside of medicine and, you know, school. Research. So it's not required, but it's recommended in order to be a competitive applicant. It can be wet science lab or clinical lab. Usually people who are in research or have done research and got into medical school did do like a good 400 hours or a year or two, or they also, you know, had a few publications that also would look great. As long as you kind of, I mean, it's not required, but it kind of is good for your application. And then letters of recommendation. We are at a point right now where it's, you know, obviously you need a good 3 letters of recommendation, but the more the more connections you get, whether it's in academics or non-academics, with professors, medical students, healthcare providers, doctors, it is very like important that you start making these connections from start. Don't wait. Don't like visit office hours. Send out emails, develop that connection before it's too late, because I'm telling you that time will sneak up on you, and then you're in need of letters of recommendation, and it's going to be so hard for you to find. Yeah. And then also, this is a little motivation. You can do this. This is a hard process, but you are almost done. Imagine how good you will look in a white coat saving lives. Giving up isn't an option. We need you. We need more people that look like us in medicine. Medicine needs you. I need you. So we really have to work hard and seek the resources that are available. And any questions or concerns? Feel free to ask any questions about anything.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What year are you?
I'm a 3rd year.
So have you started applying to like any med schools yet?
I'm sorry, your volume's like a little bit low. I can't hear you.
Have you applied to like any med schools yet?
No, actually, I haven't taken the MCAT yet either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I think Brandon and Nevian are both in the process of studying for the MCAT. Can you guys talk a little bit about how that's going?
Sure. Yeah, so I'll be applying not this cycle, but the next cycle. So like right now I'm in the process of gathering like all my materials. I actually got confirmation like from one of my recommenders earlier in the week. So just like reaching out to them, making sure that they have enough time, you know, to write like my letters for me. But yeah, right now I'm like working on my personal statement also. That's like another big thing, like Nassim was saying, where we're able to give, you know, the applicant reviewers just like insight about our lives, about our academic processes, and stuff like that. I took my MCAT over the summer. I was fortunate enough to be in a position where like I was able to dedicate, you know, like 8, 9, 10 hours a day of studying to it, and like working other than that was like a little bit challenging, but I knew like for me personally, like doing so, like studying for it during the school year would be really tough. But yeah, I probably studied for about 2 months, and then took it. It was actually interesting because they shortened the exam a little bit, just because of COVID. It's like I lucked out. I think my each section was only like 48 questions instead of 59. So that was actually really nice. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's good. How did you guys get through these years? How did you guys keep pushing yourself? I think personally, honestly, like when I first came in freshman year, I was really lost. I was very unmotivated until my friend introduced me to MAPS. And I think what really pushed me through these years was this organization. I think when you see people like you and the same thing as you, and you know, hopefully go into the same career field and whatnot as you guys are all on the same route, I believe. And it's just, yeah. So yeah, MAPS, just like Brandon said, MAPS really motivated us. And like the connections that we made through MAPS with the medical school, with physicians, with medical students, with like pre-meds that I've never, like all the connections, literally that's where I got them from. And I feel like I keep pushing for my why. And instead of thinking about negative thoughts, I thought more of the positive, well, hey, like I always have a friend or someone to go back to talk about. And like, also like anybody in this organization, if you ever need anyone to talk to about, or to vent, or just to listen, or any advice, like we're always here. So. Any other questions? So what year are you guys?
Third.
Third.
Second.
Okay. And how did you start preparing? So for like my freshman year, what do you mean, like how did you start preparing? Are you saying like for like classes, for connections?
I meant like, for example,
Yeah.
I have a family friend, and she's a pediatric, or she's in her residency right now, and she recommended that I join this program right now for my
Okay.
first year.
Okay.
So I was just like, she gave me like a list of things to do, but she just said, make sure you join like an organization that you really like this year for your first year. But she didn't tell me like anything else, and I was wondering, like, just try to pick you guys' brains, because I'm a first year, and just trying to see like what should I do now, and how should I start like working towards that progress. Like,
Okay. So I would say first year can be very overwhelming, because obviously, you know, you're on that track where you want to meet new people, you want to establish connections, you want to focus on your grades, you know, you got to make sure. I honestly would say one thing I would recommend for me personally, if I was to look back on my freshman year, was that I wish I focused more on my grades. I think it slipped away a little bit because I was so focused on, you know, getting to know people and joining all these student orgs and stuff. I think if you have a few student orgs, that's great. But I think one thing that I think that's very important, especially freshman year, is your GPA. you know, because if you have a really good GPA your freshman year and you're not, like, it's kind of the thing where it's like, if you start really bad, you tend to go bad. If you start really good, you can go good, but there's always ways around it. But make sure, you know, you're doing good on your GPA. I would also look into volunteering. That's one thing I wish I knew about, because all those hours can be very overwhelming. So I would say, like, you know, if you slowly pick up some volunteering hours, you know, slowly pick up some clinical hours, you'll pace yourself into 4 years. And I think, I mean, either way, it's fine, but that's just something that I would give myself advice if I was to do freshman year all over again. Any other? Aaron, Brandon, Nevion? Any other advice?
I would agree with what Nasim said about making sure you're on top of your GPA, because it's a lot easier to it's a lot easier to tank your GPA than it is to raise it up. So I would just make sure you're putting aside enough time for your classes. Also, don't overwhelm yourself, because that's what I did my freshman year, especially second semester. You can tend to take too many classes at once. So just pace yourself. You don't have to graduate in 2 years. You don't have to graduate in 3 years. Just take your time, and don't take all of your hard classes at once. Definitely add in some easy GEs every semester, so you have time to focus on the really tough sciences. And then I would, like what Nasim said, I would recommend just trying to see what you can get into that's going to be manageable. Usually volunteering is something that you can easily add. Research or getting like a clinical job can be a lot more time consuming. So sometimes volunteering is best to start out with. But I'm going to plug our website. So definitely go look on there, because we have different ways that you can start earning those experiences that you need. So we have a different tab for looking at research, looking at volunteer opportunities around Ohio State, and looking at getting in clinical hours. But yeah.
Yeah, that's really true.
You can volunteer anywhere. They're really just trying to see that you care, and that you have a heart for service, I guess you can say. But yeah, it definitely doesn't have to be clinical volunteering. It can be any type of volunteering.
That's true. Any other questions?
Do you know, like, when applying for med school, do you know if they're gonna like compare applicants by race? Because like I also see these statistics like thrown around all the time, and like I don't understand when like our race matters. Like it just gets me annoyed because like people like use it like to say like, oh, like Black people are like, you know what I'm trying to say, like inferior. Yeah. So I was just wondering that.
I think that's like tricky, because like sometimes you're like, okay, no, like they can't do that because that's like discriminating, blah blah blah. But then at the same time, I think they do that. So it's kind of, I don't think they just get like, you know, a white applicant and a Black applicant and be like, oh, like this person has a higher GPA than them, so I'll just take them. I don't think they necessarily do that. I don't know what goes on in the medical admissions, whatever they do, but I think it's more of like, I think it's more they focus on your metrics, and they focus on your clinical work, and they focus on like what more about, it's more about your application, I feel like, than more than your race. I think because some, like nowadays, where it's like, oh, where if you are a minority, or if you are if you first generation, if you have some kind of background, it's kind of like, oh, this person really worked hard, or this person really was at a disadvantage. So it kind of could give you that pro, but then it also can give you that con as well, because of like another applicant applying, but they, let's just say they went to South Africa to volunteer. So it's kind of like, I don't know what they do. I don't know if you got Aaron, Brandon, if anyone has any insight on that, but me personally, I think that's it. There's always a comparison, but I think personally they look more at your metrics and your application. That answered your question.
It did. Thank you.
There is an effort being made to kind of get more doctors of color. So that's why there may be some variation in the numbers. And they're trying to do more holistic reviews. Like, give me one second. Like OSU is very big on doing holistic reviews. So they'll not just at your metrics. And they do know a lot of students of color have various different barriers. So that can also play into the numbers.
Yeah. Cool. I hope that answered your question. But any other questions, concerns, anything?
There's also a Q&A done by Dr. Rankin, who's the director of admissions for OSU Medical College of Medicine. So that'll be posted to our website, hopefully later today.
Awesome. Thank you, Erin. So any other questions, concerns? Is there a way to share these slides? Yeah, I will share these slides into our drive. We'll hopefully send that out later on today. Cool. Is that basically it? No questions, concerns, anything? And like, feel free to reach out to any of us. Like, I really want, MAPS is a family, so we are here for you guys. If you guys have any questions, concerns, advice, if I have any advice, I'll ask you guys. You guys have any advice, you ask me. We're all in this together, so just let us know. Cool. All right, thank you guys so much for joining. We will be sending out the drive and we will be sharing slides. Stay tuned on our website as well. And yeah, if you guys have any questions or concerns, feel free to ask in the group chat, email, text us, whatever. We'll be here. All right, have a good night, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.